To the installation of Uncle Clunk. This part will deal with the stage preparation. We call it the pre-installation of Clunk. Later on, after the stage has been prepared, you will begin the actual installation process. Before you begin the pre-installation of Uncle Clunk, it is important that you take inventory of all the items you have received for the pre-installation. If you haven't yet taken inventory, do it now. Use the pre-installation shipment package list contained in the printed pre-installation instructions and check off the inventoried items as you go. If you are missing any of the items or hardware needed for the pre-installation, you should call Fred Quinlan at Creative Engineering Incorporated. His telephone number is area code 305-841-7900. If you are missing any parts, make that call now. All right, we will begin the pre-installation of Uncle Clunk. As you know, Uncle Clunk will be installed where Rolf and Earl have been performing, the stage to the left as you face the performers from the front. Begin by dismantling the Rolf and Earl set. Remove the crash cymbal and stand from the stage. Do that by unscrewing the hardware holding the cymbal and stand to the stage floor. Now tape the hardware you have removed to the cymbal and carefully box it off for storage. As you remove materials from the Rolf and Earl set, they should be carefully protected for storage. Now remove Rolf and Earl's costume. Begin by carefully taking off their masks. Now remove Rolf's feet, body fur, and hands. After removing Rolf and Earl's costume, air down the show. Open the trapdoor and disconnect the main air line to Rolf's valve bank at the T-fitting and also at the oiler. You may have to split the air hose with an X-Acto knife or a razor blade at both locations to get it to separate easily. Now unbolt the quick disconnect on Rolf's valve bank. Use two 7/16" wrenches to unbolt those quick disconnects. Now be careful not to dislodge and lose the O-rings when you separate those parts. As you proceed, be sure to save all the nuts, bolts, flat washers, and lock washers. Also, take this opportunity to tape the ends of and then to wire tie Rolf's character cable to the underside of the stage. Remove Rolf's valve bank from under the stage by pulling it up through the trapdoor. You will need it to get an assistant to help you with the next step. Crawl under the stage and pass Rolf's plumbing harness up and out of the stage through the small hole behind Rolf's foot. You will have to fold the quick disconnect parallel to the air lines to get it through that hole. Now the quick disconnect may not look as though it will fit through the hole, but once it is folded parallel to the air lines, it will. Now it's time to unbolt and remove Rolf from the stage. It is important that you have someone hold Rolf while you unbolt his foot plates. The bolts holding the foot plates are located under the stage, so you may need to have someone there as well. Make sure your assistant is holding Rolf and Earl, otherwise he could take a dive into your dining room. And be sure to save all the nuts and bolts and washers. After Uncle Clunk is installed, you can use his wood dolly, which has been pre-drilled with T-nuts, to bolt Rolf and Earl onto. This will allow Rolf to be secure enough so you may make any necessary repairs on him. Once unbolted, Carry Rolf and Earl carefully off the stage and into your tech room. Secure him against the wall until Uncle Clunk's wood dolly becomes available. Now remove the rainbow from the stage. You do that by unscrewing the L brackets from the rear of the rainbow and from the stage itself. When you've done that, carry the rainbow off the stage for storage. Now it's important to wrap the rainbow in paper in order to keep it from becoming scratched, and the hardware should be taped to the brackets. The two pair of red and yellow floodlights positioned behind the rainbow should be removed next. Again, be sure to tape all hardware to the light fixtures and box them for protection and storage. Your carpet has probably gotten a little dirty from all the work we've been doing, so this would be a good time to vacuum it. When you have completed the vacuuming, remove all the staples from your carpet and gradually pull it up off the floor slowly and carefully. Now the carpet will be used again when Rolf goes back on stage. Roll the carpet up after you have removed all those staples and prepare it for storage. Now is the time to remove any protruding objects from the stage floor. This will ensure a flat, clean surface for the new carpet. Now take an inventory of all the props removed so far. The crash cymbal and its hardware, the costumes, mask, feet, hands, body fur, and drumstick, Rolf's mounting hardware, the floodlights, the two yellow and the two red with their hardware, the rainbow with its L brackets and hardware, and the carpet. All of these items are now ready for storage. For the next step, it's important for you to find the back wall center line. Use a tape measure and measure from the break of the wall by the stage right drape motor. If you have any questions, refer to drawing 1A in the printed instructions. When you find the center line, mark it. Now be sure to save the lumber packed inside of your new carpet. Now lay that carpet out on your stage and unroll it. Align the center line marked on the stage with the center line already marked on the carpet. Be sure the carpet is flush with the back wall when you align it. Now, as you lay the carpet out, you will see it has cutouts and is marked for character placement. In some cases, it's necessary to relocate the trapdoor. Check the layout of your trapdoor in relation to Uncle Clunk, his right foot, the table, and the guest chair. If any of the placement marks on the carpet interfere with the opening and closing of your trapdoor, then you will have to move it. Remove the door by simply unscrewing it at its hinges. Locate a point where you can fit the trapdoor where it will not interfere with Uncle Clunk, and also a place where it will not interfere with Rolf when he is returned to the stage. Take the door and lay it over its new location, and using a magic marker, outline it. Following the outline, use a circular saw to cut out the new trapdoor. When you've finished cutting the new trapdoor, pry it out using screwdrivers and a hammer. Don't forget to move the oiler from the old trapdoor to the new one and screw it in place. Use the piece of plywood you've already cut out to recover the old trapdoor. Press it in place and then nail it. Use a 2x4 as a support piece for the new trapdoor. And be sure to nail it in place as well. Next, take the new trapdoor cover and press it in place. Fasten it by screwing its hinges in place. Bring in the new carpet again, unroll it, and align the centering mark on the carpet with the center line on the back wall. Take the staple gun and staple the carpet flush against the back wall. It is important that you staple only the back of the carpet at this time. Now trim the carpet around the radius of the stage, also around the drape motors and between stage right and center stage. Also, be sure to trim the carpet for the new trapdoor and finish stapling the carpet in place. Now use vice grips to shut off the air by crimping the air line just before the oiler, and install the show tapes and birthday tape that only use stage left and center stage using Showbiz tape installation procedures. When you're finished trimming around the trapdoor, then staple the remainder of the carpet in place. This completes the pre-installation of Uncle Clunk. This completes the preparation of the Clunk stage. Now it's time to begin the actual installation process. Now be sure to use the printed instructions and illustrations that you have received in addition to this videotape. Those materials will make the job as easy for you as possible. Let's begin by taking inventory of the items contained within the two large plywood crates. First, remove the packing list from the exterior of the crate marked the Clunk crate, and put it aside for inventory until that crate has been unloaded. Now open the crate by unbolting and removing its front. Be sure to save all the nuts, bolts, washers, and plywood pieces that you collect as the crate is dismantled. The crate will be used again for storage when Uncle Clunk is dismantled at a later date, so keep it in a safe place. Remove the contents of the crate carefully, and as you proceed, you will need to unscrew a shelf or two inside in order to get at all the parts. Also, watch for Clunk's valve bank, and be careful not to crimp any of those lines. When you're finished unloading the crate, use the packing sheet you removed earlier to take inventory. Now, as you take inventory, check all the parts and make sure none are missing or have been damaged in shipment. If any parts are missing or have been damaged, be sure to call Creative Engineering Incorporated. Fred Quinlan is the man to talk to there. His number is area code 305-841-7900. Remember, call Fred if any parts are damaged or are missing. When you've finished with the inventory of crate 1, move on to the second crate. It's labeled the chair crate. Again, collect the packing list from its envelope, and then unbolt the crate as you did with the first one. Carefully remove the contents and put them aside for inventory. Again, as you proceed, you will need to loosen and remove the shelving and protective bracing within the crate in order to get everything out. Again, be sure to take inventory and call Fred Quinlan if need be. Finally, when you're finished, dismantle both crates and put them and all the nuts and bolts and washers aside that you've collected for later use. Now that you have completed inventory and moved all the parts inside, it is time to set up the ceiling accessories. First, by installing the banner board. Remove the Rolf and Earl valance first. Now carefully pull out the staples helping to hold it in place using a pair of pliers, and then peel the valance away from its Velcro fastener. When you remove the valance, store it away for future use. And remember, as the props for the Rolf and Earl stage are taken down, carefully pack them up for storage. This is the hardware you'll be using to assemble the banner board, hardware number 5. Fit the 3 bolts through one side of the banner board. Now press the halves of the banner board together. Add the necessary washers and nuts. The mounting board is now assembled and is ready for installation. Use hardware number 3 to mount the assembled banner board. With the help of an assistant, raise the banner board to the ceiling grid. Measure to ensure that it's in precisely the right location. And then drill the dirt irons provided into the grid structure of the ceiling and space them evenly throughout the entire length of the banner board. You may need to install an extension piece to your banner board if it doesn't fit flush to your stage wall. Cut the extension piece from spare lumber as needed and fit it into place. Find a similar sized piece of lumber and place it on top of the false ceiling. And fasten the extension piece as needed. Finally, finish the job by attaching Velcro to its front. Now it's time to install the Abomination mechanism and Sine. But first, take a look at your printed instructions. drawing 1A near the back for the details you will need in order to find the center point of the stage radius. Now, after measuring and using a plumb bob to find that center line, install the Sine mechanism support frame and use hardware number 4 for this. Begin by attaching a foot-long 2x4 support piece to the drapery board directly above the center line. Now position the support piece about 5 inches behind the front of the drapery board. Next, attach a second foot-long 2x4 directly on top of the first. When you're finished with the front, install a third 2x4 support piece on the back wall above the ceiling tiles. This back support piece should be the same size as the two pieces in the front and should be attached at the same height as the top of the front support. Use 3-inch drywall screws to mount this final support piece into a stud on the back wall. This is a recommended installation, and you may have to change this procedure for your particular stage. Now find the large 8-foot-long 2x4 and mount it on the smaller support pieces. Now make sure this support piece is on the radius center line. The Abomination mechanism will be attached to it next, so check to make sure the support frame is in the proper position. Then fasten it down using drywall screws. Locate the aluminum Abomination Sine mechanism and then position it on top of the large wood support. When you've got it in the right place, attach weights to the Sine mechanism cables and allow them to hang freely. Now at this point you may find it necessary to trim pieces of the ceiling grid away to allow those cables to dangle uninterrupted. Now measure to see that those Abomination mechanism cables are hanging 6 inches behind the banner board. Check this by measuring from the front of the board. Finally, when you've determined the mechanism is on the center line and the lines are positioned properly, bolt the Sine mechanism onto the support piece using hardware number 6. Now find the coiled air line and run it across the ceiling to the Sine mechanism. Attach airline lead A to the front and airline lead B to the back of the Sine mechanism. When you have completed attaching both leads of the airline, guide the remainder down the wall between the rain curtain and the curtain motor. Attach the airline to the wall using the tie wraps provided in hardware 13. Drill a hole in the stage floor near the curtain motor and feed the airline through it. It will be attached later. Finally, finish the job by spray painting the airline at the stage back wall. Now move on to step E in the printed instructions, to the installation of the Clunk banner. Center the banner onto the banner board and use the Velcro in the front of the board and press it into place. Now as you install it, make sure it's centered properly and all wrinkles have been removed. Finally, staple it into place for added security. Now it's time to install the Uncle Clunk Abomination sign. In order to complete this step, you should use illustration 8B, located in the back of the printed installation instructions. Use this hardware and cut and crimp the cable lengths using the formula you have been given. Now be sure to make the cables of equal length so the sign will hang evenly. Now, when you've got the sign hanging, be sure to crimp the S-hooks where they attach the sign to the cables and springs. This will prevent the sign from accidentally falling onto the stage during a performance. Finally, check to see that your sign hangs evenly. This is the hardware you will need to hang the TV camera. Measure carefully and locate a position over the guest chair 34 inches on center from the back wall. Now install 2 eye bolts in the ceiling 25.5 inches apart and use picture hanging wire to suspend the camera. Check that the front of the camera hangs 23 inches from the ceiling and the rear 17 inches. When you've completed the TV camera installation, locate your on-the-air sign. Now, if your applause sign faceplate has not yet been changed over to the on-the-air faceplate, then you will have to change it. Refer to drawing 9A in the printed instructions for the retrofit. When you're ready to install the sign, measure to find the center of your stage back wall. Now attach 2 L brackets to your on-the-air sign, and then attach the completed assembly to your back wall at the top of the curtain header. Now once the sign has been installed, check to see that the rear curtain hangs freely. Also, locate the sign's power cord and staple it to the back wall. Finish the job by plugging the sign in. You will be using these toggle bolts, part of hardware number 7, to install the Cuckoo clock next. Begin by mounting the shorter leg of these L brackets to the wall. Now the brackets mount 52 inches above the stage floor, measuring to the top of the bracket. Now space them 15 inches apart, centered on the back wall center line, and drill holes and then push the toggle bolts through. When you're finished, check to see that the brackets are level and secure. Locate the Cuckoo clock and set it on the brackets. The power cord and air lines are located within the clock's rear door, so be sure to free them first. As you set the clock in its position, check to see that it is 1.5 inches away from the wall. This will allow enough clearance for the rain curtain to hang freely. Also at this time, check to see that your clock is level. Now, when the clock is positioned properly, use the Durdines from hardware number 2 and fasten it down. The air lines and power cord run straight down the back wall. Now be sure to use the wire ties to fasten them securely. Also, you must drill a hole through the stage floor near the back wall. The air lines from the clock run under the stage here. Use flat black paint on the power cord and air lines and plug the Cuckoo clock's power cord in the outlet previously used by the red floodlight. And finally, arrange the rain curtain so it hangs freely. You will be using these 3-inch drywall screws next to mount the Love Mom picture. Turn the picture over and put 2 of the drywall screws into the bottom corners of the picture frame. Now, the screws should just be visible at the front of the frame. This will allow the rain curtain to hang freely behind the picture. Now measure to install the picture 41 1/4 inches from the center line to the left of the clock. Measure down 18.5 inches from the top of the rain curtain header. The 3rd drywall screw should be installed at this point. Finally, hang the picture in position. Time to install this Pee-wee spotlight. Begin by disconnecting the base of the spotlight and screw that base into the drapery board in the ceiling near the stage center line and reattach the spotlight. Now remove 2 green floodlights. Replace the floodlight closest to the spotlight with a screw-in outlet receptacle. Now plug the spotlight into the receptacle and then wire tie the dangling cord to the ceiling. Finally, aim the spotlight at the cuckoo clock and lock it into position. Now it's time for you to begin the installation of Robot Clunk himself. Begin by disassembling Clunk's disconnect on his valve bank. When the disconnect comes apart, use masking tape to cover both ends. This will keep the O-rings in place and will keep any dirt or debris out. Unbolt Uncle Clunk from his dolly and put the dolly aside for later use. Now, with the help of an assistant or two, carry Uncle Clunk on stage. Clunk will fit nicely over the cutout in the carpet. This is the hardware needed to bolt Clunk to the stage floor. Now use a 1/4 inch drill bit to drill out pilot holes in the floor. If you happen to drill into a joist, make note of it and use lag bolts instead of through bolts. When you finish drilling with a larger 3/8 inch drill bit the second time around, bolt Clunk to the stage. In order to make the next step easier, disconnect Clunk's aluminum right foot from his leg. Now place the foot over the mark on the carpet and drill out the 4 holes. Now reassemble the foot and the leg and locate Clunk's rubber tennis shoe and the fiberglass insert. Place Clunk's right foot over the insert and shoe and then bolt it all onto the floor. Now move to the back of the chair in order to clear a 3-inch wide hole in the stage for the plumbing harness to pass through. Here, 2 smaller holes were drilled side by side. As you pass the plumbing harness through, be careful not to crimp any of the air lines. When you're finished, be sure to wire tie those air lines to the base of Clunk's chair. Before going beneath the stage to hook Clunk up, locate the table and guest chair. Drill and bolt them into position in the same manner as you did with Uncle Clunk. Now hand Clunk's valve banks beneath the stage. There you will reconnect them to the quick disconnects that are waiting. Now carefully remove the masking tape you put on to keep the dirt out and the O-rings in place. Now check to see that every O-ring is still there, and then reconnect the quick disconnects and the valve banks. And as you do this, be certain the air lines are aligned properly. When you have finished, locate the air lines for the Abomination sign and the Cuckoo clock. Also find the main air line. Now connect them to the valve bank according to the printed instructions. When this is complete, you may air up the show. Now be sure you check for possible leaks when you turn the air on. Locate the Clunk controller and place it into position underneath the stage through the trapdoor. Locate the two output ribbon cables attached to the controller and plug them into the interface as shown. The lower cable, J3, attaches to the left-hand board, movements 1 through 15. The upper cable, J2, plugs into the right-hand board, movements 16 through 30. Now find the 60-foot RCA phono cable and plug one end into the phono jack connector on the computerized tape reader board inside the controller. After closing the controller doors, run the phono cable back through the wall into the control room. Any excess cable should be left under the stage. Now at this point, turn the controller off, and then plug it into the extension cord. Now run the extension cord up through the stage near the center line, and then plug it into the outlet on the back wall. Also be sure to tack down the carpet with a stapler, and then paint the extension cord flat black. Now move into the control room in order to complete the controller hookup. Locate the Y phono connector you have been supplied with and plug it into the number 3 output on the top deck. Here's a close-up repeat of what you need to do. The 60-foot RCA phono cable that you plugged into the computerized tape reader board in the Clunk controller should now be plugged into one female jack of the Y connector. Plug the existing phono plug into the other jack. Now turn on the power switch of the Clunk controller and check to see that the two recessed LEDs in the upper right-hand corner of the front of the box are on. The upper LED indicates the 5-volt power supply is on, the lower one the 24-volt power supply. Wheel out your video test equipment so you can see the monitor and Clunk at the same time, and connect the 8-foot RCA phono cable provided for the Clunk VCR from the audio output number 2 on the VCR to the jack on the computerized tape reader board inside the controller. Locate your adjustment tape and turn on your video tape deck, and then load the tape. Make sure it's rewound. Now run the warm-up section of the tape. Clunk will go through each movement separately. As he does, check Clunk and the props for any obvious air leaks, for defects or damage. Now it's time to dress Clunk and the stage. Begin by locating and installing the decorative bases for the table and the chairs. Now set the flower vase on the cuckoo clock pedestal. Lay out Clunk's clothes on stage next, and yes, his bow tie too. Begin dressing Clunk by fitting his shirt and carefully snapping it in place using the fasteners provided. Now it's important that all Velcro and snap fasteners be secured, but also that Clunk move freely. So when you've dressed him, see that he moves freely without hindrance of his clothing. Your completely outfitted Uncle Clunk should look like this. Using the video adjustment tape you have, run the Clunk set phone program. The set phone section will start its cycle by first leaning Clunk's chair back, then moving his arm into position. After his arm is in position, Clunk's wrist and thumb will cycle 5 times and then repeat the whole cycle again. The cycle will continue repeating until the set phone section of the tape is over. If you need more time, rewind it to the beginning of the set phone section and repeat the cycle. Position the phone stand so Clunk's thumb is centered between the V-blocks. When you've done that, adjust the stand height. Now make sure the phone fits squarely into the palm of Clunk's hand when it's in the down position. When you have Clunk picking up and setting down the phone correctly, tighten the adjustments on the phone stand and secure it to the table using 3/4 inch dirt irons. Now to avoid damaging Clunk's arm and hand, don't stop the videotape unless Clunk is leaning forward and his arm is away from the table. Now finally, remove the V-blocks from the phone stand and install the phone cover over the stand. When you've got it in place, bolt the V-blocks to the phone stand. Run the Set Banana section of the video adjustment tape next, and use the same procedure for setting up the banana as you did for the phone. When you've got the stand into position, fasten it into place, and then slide the vase over the stand. And be sure to remember to stop the videotape player only when Clunk is in a static position during the cycle. Finally, it's time to video test Uncle Clunk and the props. Run the video test section of the adjustment tape. View the tape long enough to correctly determine that the movement is truly out of adjustment. The video display and character must be synchronized exactly. If a movement is in question, isolate the valve in the valve bank that operates the movement. Manually operate the valve by pressing the white manual override button on the valve solenoid. Observe the movement by operating it manually. Look for a smooth operation of the movement in question. Check for cosmetic parts that are binding. If the movement is truly out of adjustment, proceed with the flow control adjustments. Now adjust spotlights number 7 and number 8. Number 8 should be directed at Uncle Clunk, and number 7 at the tabletop telephone and fruit vase. Also, double check to see that the Pee-wee spotlight is aimed at the cuckoo clock. Finally, as a part of preventive maintenance, you will need to check Uncle Clunk's critical adjustments periodically. Now, you've been provided with a complete manual on all of Clunk's critical angles. In order to keep Clunk functioning properly, strict adherence to the angles and tolerances is a must. It's all finished, and thanks to your hard work, your Uncle Clunk should be performing as well as the most carefully installed in the entire Showbiz Pizza Place chain of restaurants. Congratulations. Stay tuned for a look at the Santa Claus stage.
More fun than you can imagine.
And so